All right, guys, welcome back for another video. We are starting into a new section, and this is Unit 6. So at the top here, go ahead and write 6.1 because that's the unit we are going to be in the section you are in. You're at the very beginning. So this section is on fractions, decimals, and percents. The learning intention is to be able to rewrite fractions, decimals, and percents using different representations. You will know that you are successful when you can write percents as decimals and decimals as percents, when you can write fractions as decimals and percents, and when you can compare and order fractions, decimals, and percents. So I want you to keep these success criteria in mind because if you're wondering, am I getting it? Am I successful? Am I actually figuring things out? This success criteria helps you see what do I understand and what do I still need to work on. So some of this should sound familiar because we worked on this at the beginning of the school year. We learned how to change a fraction into a decimal and a decimal into a fraction. So this is old news. Okay, so now we're just throwing in percentages into that. So if I have a decimal and I want to change it to a percent, so like this 6,400, I am just going to multiply by 100. So I would take 0.64, 64 hundredths, multiply it by 100, which would get 64. And how do I know that? Because the easy way is just to move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So when you multiply by 100, you're going to move this decimal 1, 2, and that will get you 64%. That's it. That's all you have to do for that. If you already have the percentage and you want to find out what it is as a decimal, you're just going to do the inverse operation. So you're going to divide by 100. So divide by 100. So move the decimal point 2 places still, but this time you're going to move it to the left. So if my percentage is 82%, I am going to move my decimal, which would be at the end of the 2. So it doesn't show because this is a whole number. So generally, when we have a whole number, we don't put the decimal place there unless we have a number on the right side of the decimal point. But in this case, we don't, so we don't generally see it. So we know it's just invisible sitting there. So I'm going to go 1, 2, which gets me 82 hundredths. If that sounds easy, if that seems easy, it's because it is fairly simple. Okay. So we're going to look at the fractions as a decimal. So this is something we learned at the beginning. So we know to make a fraction a decimal, we're just going to divide the numerator by the denominator. Okay, so let's convert 1/2 to a decimal. So I know what 1/2 is as a decimal, and if you know, then you can just write it. But if you don't know, you need to do some long division. So you're going to go 1 divided by 2. And how many times does 2 go into 1? It doesn't. So I'm going to write a 0 up here. When I add a number here, I'm going to bring down 0. So that how many times does 2 go into 10? Well, 2 goes into 10 5 times evenly. And so I know that 1/2 is 5/10. Okay. So if you want to, now that's a fraction as a decimal. Now, if I want to figure out a fraction to a percent, think about it for a second. If this is my decimal, how do we find out how we find out a percent as or a decimal as a percent? Sorry. So if this is 64 hundredths, I move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So if this is 5/10, I move the decimal place 2 places to the right, which would mean that that is 50%. So that's essentially what we're going to do here. So fraction as a percent, you're still going to divide the numerator by the denominator. So I still have to, if I'm trying to figure out a fraction to a percent, I'm still going to have to do this step. So I'm not going to be able to skip the step of doing the division to figure out what the decimal is. I'm still going to have to go here, figure out what's the decimal. Once I figure out the decimal, then I'm going to multiply by the 100. Okay, so to find a fraction as a percent, you actually have to do this step, then you do this step, and that's how you solve for this. So in the case of this one, let's convert 3/4 to a percent. So if you don't know what 3/4 is or as a decimal already, then you're going to need to do the long division to figure it out. In my case, I know that it's 75 hundredths. So it's going to be 0.75. That's what 3/4 is. And then I'm going to multiply this number by 100. And I know when I multiply by 100, that means I'm going to move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So I'm going to go 1, 2, leaving me with 75%. Okay, that's it. That's all we're doing for this section. It is a fairly simple concept. Okay, so let's look at the other side. This is your you try it, and you're going to get to convert from fractions, you're going to convert from decimals, and you're going to convert from percents. Now, I want you to write in a couple fractions here. So for number 1, you are going to convert 3/8 to a decimal. So write that 3/8. For number 2, you are going to convert 4/16 to a decimal. For number 3, I want you to convert 2/4 to a percent. So these ones are convert to a decimal, convert to a decimal, convert to a percent. So make sure you're paying attention to your wording here. And then number 4, convert 3/5 to a percent. Okay, so you're going to do that for these ones. Both of these, you're converting to the fraction to a decimal, converting the fraction to a percent. Now here, you're going to convert the decimal to a fraction for both of these, and then the decimal to a percent here. And then the last 4, you're going to convert the percentage to a fraction, and then the percentage to a decimal. Okay, so you're going to try these 4 on each of these. So you will have 12 different problems to do. These should not take you very long at all. But if you have questions, you should be looking back at this side to figure out what the steps are to solve them, working to figure this out first before you're asking for assistance. Okay? So you should cruise through this, but let me know if you have any questions about this lesson.